Now, first I want to start. I know that we all have different experiences about family. So I understand that. And so I want to say there's some good and there's probably some not so good maybe. So maybe you're sitting going, O'Neill, I don't want to talk about family tonight. That is the last thing I want to talk about. So if you're one of those people, I want you to take the family that you've had not great experiences with and think about your close peeps, like your ride or die people, right? The people who you just love to be around. They like light up your world. That's what I want you to think about, right? So those are the people I want you to think about for this conversation. And if there's a tension you're feeling with this topic tonight, I want you to sit in it. I want you to talk about it in your small group later. I want you to dive in and find out why there could be a tension there. So, first question, this is an interactive moment. I want you to turn to the person next to you or a group, and I just want you to talk about what does family look like or mean to you. Go for it. Some vibey music, nice. Some lo-fi, okay, all right. I'm gonna give you like 20, 30 more seconds. And if you're done chatting, find out a fun fact about the person next to you. We can always get to know each other better, right? All right, come back, come back. Come back, be here. I love Taylor Swift. I told you I did. Okay, so we probably all had a lot of different definitions about family. Can you shout some out to me? What did you guys talk about? Provide something daily. Good. What else? Not an option. Oh, not an object. Okay, sorry. Cool. What else? Friends. I like it. Friends. Perfect. Okay, cool. So we probably had a lot of different things to say about family. But we're going to look at the Bible, Bible, very popular book. I'm sure you've read some of it. So we're going to start with John 13, 1 through 5. And it's a story where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. Now, you might have heard this story before, but I want you to really pay attention to what it means and what he was doing, because this is actually a pretty interesting story. So, verses 1 through 3 say this, and you can all read it on the screen as well. It says, it was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going back to God. And then verses 4 through 5 says, rose from supper, he laid aside his outer garments and taking a towel, tied it around his waist and poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel that was wrapped around him. Okay. Big story, right? So we're going to just kind of simplify it, right? So we can all follow along with the story. So they're at dinner. Jesus and the disciples are at dinner, right? They're eating some bread, probably having some like tasty food, right? And then Jesus knew that it was his time to leave the world. So this is the point where Jesus is about to be crucified, right? It's like the night before pretty much. And so they're just chilling, probably chatting about some biblical time things, right? Cattle, sandal making, I'm not sure, but we get the idea. They're just hanging out. Then Jesus gets up from the table. He just gets up from the table. And if we think about this, it's not a chairs and tables situation like we have, right? They're on the floor. So they're all just kind of sitting, maybe not even on pillows like we like to at like some fancy restaurant. They're just right on the floor. No comfy, nothing. So he gets up, he takes off his robe. Little interesting, I know. He takes off his robe. I know, that's an interesting part of the story. We'll get to that. And then I'm sure that if we were sitting there, if I was the disciple, I'd kind of get quiet at the moment. You're like, what's he doing? Like, is everybody watching this? He just gets up, takes off the robe. And then because of the time of society and culture, this was also not something that someone of his leadership would do normally. Like someone who is of his high status to society would not just get up and just take off his robe and get up from the table. That was very taboo, as you can say. And then he washes his friends' feet. So he literally takes off their sandals, takes a basin, washes their feet. Now, this is kind of a fun little moment too to think about. Do they wear shoes at this time? They wore sandals, right? So they're walking around. They probably have blisters on their feet. Dirty, gross, smelly, right? So you would not want to wash their feet. I wouldn't. It would probably be just very uncomfortable, gross, like it's not a common thing, right? And then he takes this towel that he's wearing and then he wipes their feet with it. So he's already breaking the rules to society just to serve his friends. He's already kind of humbling himself down to their level to serve them. So let's kind of talk about, they didn't have nice shoes, they didn't have nice things, right? It's just kind of very, very old, traditional, ancient, you could call it. But because Jesus loved them, that was the most important thing. He didn't care that it was gross or was possibly smelly or it was just inconvenient. So that's our next point, is that we must love one another. And then later in verse 34 through 35, it continues saying, this is Jesus, he says, "A new command I give to you. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." So Jesus gives them a little teaching moment right before he leaves, right? He says, love one another. In fact, he uses a very important word. He says, must. Does anybody know how important must is in the Bible? It's actually mentioned only 94 times in the whole Bible. I don't know how many verses total are in the Bible, but it's a lot. So 94 times is meaning very important moments, right? So when we look at family, we shared in the beginning how we view family. We said a provider, someone who is, a friend, a close person. And so when you're thinking about the family you live with, or the family I told you to think about in the beginning, it says we're asked to love them. How many people are already like, that's kind of hard sometimes. Like, they make me mad. Yeah, I see the hands. They make me mad. They frustrate me. They annoy me. It's just not easy to love them. But according to this verse, it says must. That means not optional. It means we must love them. It means when mom and dad don't let you go hang out with friends at a certain place or past a certain time. I know it sucks, but they love you. And they're caring for you. But it's not always fun to hear. But that says, must love them, right? So the first things Jesus asks us to do is love each other. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens or what comes up in life, we're asked to love people. And that can be hard because people are difficult. Am I right? Yeah, we're all shaking our heads. They're difficult. I know. Some people, man, they're just frustrating. But that says everyone. Everyone. Not just the people you really love to hang out with, not just the people who you vibe with, but everyone. It says you must love one another. And guess what? The spoiler is that the people you really don't like, that's who you have to love the most. I know. Yeah. Can hear a pin drop in here. Yeah. I understand the feeling. It means the people who cause pain and hurt you sometimes, you have to love them too. That doesn't mean that the pain is excusable, and it doesn't mean that it's okay, but you do have to choose love, and that can be kind of hard sometimes. So, like I said earlier, if you've been sitting here and you're like, man, family sucks. Like, they really just aren't my people. They aren't supportive. They aren't encouraging. I understand that. And that is my final point to say, loving each other, easier said than done. I know. But if you're sitting here and you're like, I don't know how to love them. I really don't. You're like, my siblings annoy me. My parents annoy me. They won't let me do anything I want. I can't seem to reason with them that this is important for me to go to this event or party and they won't let me, or date this person. We've all been there. But guess what you can do when you don't know how to love somebody? All you have to do is ask God. Very simple. God loves when we come to him with who we are, with a simple question as, I don't know what to do. It's as simple as that. You may not know how to love them, and that's okay. That's where God comes in and shows you how to love somebody. And if we think about the story of Jesus with the disciples washing their feet, he probably didn't know how to love them in a moment either. And then he got the idea to wash their feet. Again, we don't go around washing each other's feet, literally. That would be a little weird. Although, I'm curious, how many of you would wash the feet of the person next to you? Nice. I appreciate that honesty. One hand. Yeah. Okay. Well, we see, though, it's a very difficult thing to think about. But we don't got to wash the feet. All you got to do is ask God how you can love them. So another verse we're going to look at that I want you guys to kind of like walk in your brains a little bit. You might know it really well. It's known as the love verse, but we're not going to look at it in the context of like you read it at a wedding. This is more of a family context, right? So 1 Corinthians, and it says in verses 4-7, yes, 13, there it is up there. It says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. I see some of you quoting it. Keep going. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. Keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Some of you know that one. I'm very impressed. Well, random round of applause to you guys. So, according to this verse, what does that mean? That means when you're frustrated, what do you have to do? Have patience. You can't get upset all the time. When you're angry, you choose love as a response. When your parents yell at you to go clean up your clothes in the house, you don't yell back, right? You respond with love and you go do it because you love them and they love you. You have a good attitude. Because, to be honest with you all, you're asked to do stuff now in your house, like dishes or laundry. But guess what? When you go to college, same thing, except you're on your own. There's no mom reminding you to pick up your stuff. If your room gets gross, it gets gross. And when you get married, the same thing, except then you have a roommate who will remind you very nicely sometimes that you need to clean up your stuff. So it never stops. So you might as well just, obey your parents when they tell you to clean up your stuff. But another big one is not being boastful. It says it is not proud. That means when you're really excited about something and you're just rubbing it in your sibling's face, like, look what I did and you didn't do. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're really not supposed to do that. And for some of you, if you're like, man, that's all that you have to do in your families to try to prove yourself worthy, I'm sorry that that's the situation, but it says not to be proud. And it says God doesn't even look at our accomplishments or trophies or awards. He looks at us. So he doesn't even care about all that stuff. You might now, and you might think that people care about it, but God actually just cares about you. And then there is one that can be pretty difficult, if I'm being honest, when it comes to family especially. It says it keeps no record of wrongs. I saw Ben's face get a little like, yeah, it's a real one, isn't it? I'm right there with you. Keeps no record of wrongs. That means that when someone does something to you or hurts your feelings, maybe they tell something about you that you told them not to tell anybody else, sibling, close friend, family member, that means if you forgive them and then they do something else, you don't go back to them saying, well, you did this too. You did this before. It says keeps no record of wrongs. That means there's no scoreboard kept in your friendships and relationships. It's not like, well, 3 strikes, you're out. Bye. You already hurt me twice. It means they disappoint you. God asks us to completely forgive them and hold no grudge, right? It's kind of hard sometimes. I know. People can be brutal. And it finally ends with protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. I love that ending one because that means it doesn't give up. That means we don't give up. That means when we feel like we're at the end of our rope with our families or friends and there's just no light at the end of the tunnel, we don't give up. We persevere and we lead with hope. We protect them and trust them. We don't give up because Jesus never did. He never will. And he doesn't, right? He didn't even give up on his disciples. They were a motley crew, right? They did everything you're not supposed to do. But he didn't give up on them. Meaning when things seem hopeless, there's always hope, right? Because Jesus never gave up. He doesn't, and he never will. So, my challenge to you guys this week is to ask yourselves, and if you're one of those people who are like, I don't know what to say or what to ask for, ask God. How can you love your families? I know, that's kind of a hard one, isn't it? But I want you to ask yourselves, how can you love your families and in a way wash their feet? Not literally, unless you feel so led. That's up to you and your family. RJ says no. But you get what I'm saying. Ask God how you can love them. Maybe it's when your siblings really annoying you because they want to hang out with you. You don't just slam the door and say, bother somebody else. But you're actually like, want to go get ice cream? You want to go see the Taylor Swift concert Eras Tour movie? You know what I mean? When your parents get upset with you, you're kind of like, maybe I should clean things. Maybe I should sit down with my mom and ask how her day's been, or dad. Sometimes it's just simply asking how someone's doing. That's the way you can love somebody, is seeing them, right? And that means all your family, not just the ones you really like. I mean, the crazy ones at times, the people who you're like, if we're at like a Thanksgiving or Christmas gathering, I'm not talking to them. They're just weird. That means you love them too. He says everybody. So that is my challenge. Ask God how you can love them. How can you wash their feet? How can you do something for them to help them feel loved and cared for and honored?